What's going on there, guys? Good morning, good afternoon, and I suppose good evening to some out there. It's the Earthmaster here on this Tuesday, December 6th, 2022. It is about 11:30 a.m. California time here along the West Coast, and taking a look at a 1.1 earthquake. The latest earthquake here on the Earthquake 3D globe in Southern California. Notice some activity ramping up here along portions of the West Coast and off the coast of the Vancouver Island ranges, just shy of the Cascadia Subduction Zone. Also a look there at the live video from Mauna Loa. Can't really see a whole lot. The wind direction is directly towards the webcam today, so that will definitely inhibit any clear views of the ongoing eruption there from Mauna Loa at Fissure 3 on the Northeast Rift Zone. Latest informational statement here from Mauna Loa. The latest update, of course, warning orange code. Current status, the Northeast Rift Zone eruption of Mauna Loa continues. This will probably be an ongoing thing for a little while. One active fissure currently, fissure number 3, is feeding a lava flow advancing slowly downward towards the Daniel K Highway. As of 5 a.m. today, the flow front was about 1.93 miles from Daniel K Saddle Road, the highway right there, with an average advance rate of about 68 feet per hour. So notice we are starting to uptick a little bit in the terms of the advancement towards that highway. Yesterday, this was about 2.1 miles from the highway. Now, obviously, a lot closer, it looks like. There continue to be several small overflows from main channels recorded over the past day, and a brief surge at the flow front yesterday morning. So things are, kind of advancing there, and they will continue to advance for as long as this eruption continues. All right, latest information here. Let me get rid of the Earthquake 3D globe here. Shows the last 24 hours of earthquake activity here across the map. And we're going to start up here along the Cascadia. Notice the continual lack of activity here, though, around the northwestern Pacific and basically within the western Pacific Ring of Fire. We're still leaning strongly towards the eastern Pacific for continual activity. That teeter-totter effect I talk about a lot, and strong hold today. And over the past couple days here across the western portion here of the states, and also up here off the coast of the Vancouver Island range. We've seen a 4.6 coming in earlier this morning, about 5 o'clock my time, near the Delwood Seamount. Now, this area is along the, not really necessarily along the plate boundary, because there's a couple different plate boundaries here. We got the plate boundary here where the Cascadia Subduction Zone begins at the northern end, and over here to the west we have the Pacific, or the plate boundary between the Pacific Plate and the Juan de Fuca Plate. Now, if you want to be specific, there are 3 different plates here. We got the larger one right here is the Juan de Fuca. We got the Gorda Plate, which pretty much cuts off here and then southward this little piece, and then up north we have the Explorer Plate, which pretty much ends roughly at one of these points here. I believe it's within that little area here is the Explorer Plate. It's the smaller of the 3. Either way, that is kind of an intraplate earthquake within the Explorer Plate, and about 10 kilometers deep. Kind of in a little odd area. Let's check out the historical data here for this earthquake activity. Looks like historical data shows that there has been quite a bit of earthquake activity out here in this region. So no stranger to earthquakes within that zone. That's where the epicenter is, that star. So it's just shy of the Cascadia Subduction Zone that sits over here to the east by about 10 miles. But that's not the only earthquake showing up as a regional pressure increasing out here along the west coast. We got some activity also within the area of the Strait of Juan de Fuca, just off the coast of Washington and Vancouver Island area. Seen a 1.7, very shallow earthquake there yesterday, late last night, negative 0.2 kilometers. So some stress building at the surface levels. Obviously, the locked area definitely continuing to build up some pressure. Also seen a 3.8 prior to this activity up north, but much further south here along the Blanco fracture zone, the 3.8 about 1:30 in the morning, a couple hours prior to the earthquake up north, about 10 kilometers deep there. And overall general seismic activity here over the past couple days along the west coast and areas inland have shown a little bit of increasing activity. Not only the activity up north around the Cascadia, but also down here along the west coast inland, just off the San Andreas Fault here, the Parkfield section, somewhat of the creeping section as well. We're getting a swarm of activity here just southwest or southeast of the Avenal area. This area did see a 4.0 yesterday, but we're seeing a lot of aftershock activity following that movement and kind of spread out around the Kettleman Hills area. There is a couple different fault zones that run through that area, and I really wish that the USGS would show the specific fault zones in that area. Kind of getting I'm gonna have to find something that may point towards that. I have a couple different sites I'll check out a little bit later, but there's a Great Valley fault thrust that runs up here north on the west side of the Sacramento Valley, but I can't remember the exact name, that runs along the southern end of the San Joaquin Valley. It's possibly, it could be the same one. But either way, some activity kicking up out here. Let me see here. Stand by for just a second. Yeah, these right here really don't show all of them either. It shows a little bit more in detail as far as the USGS fault systems go here, but not exactly what I wanted here for that area. Let me see here. I'm looking at this fault system. There's actually a really cool app called Quake Feed on, well, I use it here on my iPhone, and it's got a bunch of faults listed here across the area. A lot more than what the USGS shows here. But it kind of looks like it's off of the fault, the Great Valley Fault, which does extend down into this area. Obviously, it's a ginormous valley, Sacramento Valley, San Joaquin Valley. I really don't like it because it's pretty much a rain shadow here. Get a lot of rain shadow effects here in this area where I live. But yeah, the Great Valley Thrust Fault runs along that area. And these earthquakes are striking at, let's see what we got for the depth there. Looks like they're all over the place, from 0 down to about 21 kilometers deep there, indicating some of that deeper movement down below. So we'll watch that. The slip rate is not super great out here. I don't recall the last time a major earthquake was within this zone. But I assume, that's obviously still active. 4.0, the largest earthquake so far in this sequence of quakes. North of Lost Hills, south of Avenal, south of Coalinga area. Man, I was just down there a month or so ago checking out the Parkfield area. And the plate boundary out there is pretty cool to see. Either way, some activity definitely ramping up there in that zone. Also up north on the Calaveras Fault Zone, we've seen some activity yesterday with a 3.6. And most of that aftershock activity has died down overnight, but still seeing some movement throughout the area. 2.6 on the San Andreas Fault there off the coast of the San Francisco region. That was coming in yesterday. But notice definitely a general seismic uptick here across the west coast over the last 24 hours. Including the last hour here, a couple smaller earthquakes coming into the region near Tehachapi. Not a whole lot going on currently across the Ridgecrest area. This is pretty quiet for now, but that could fill in. Also up here, just off the southern branch here of the San Andreas Fault, a couple more smaller earthquakes. Now, no major swarms kicking up here in Southern California. Most of the activity right now, a noticeable activity, has been confined north of the Garlock Fault Shear Zone, which is this section right here that kind of goes southwest to northeast here. Almost completely opposite of what we normally see out here along the west coast with the San Andreas Fault and the subsequent following fault systems here that kind of parallel with it. But definitely some activity ramping up today along the west coast. I wanted to give a quick overview here of the Juan de Fuca Plate. Now that's the area of the Cascadia Subduction Zone. This kind of gives a general indication, a little cross view of what it looks like. You got the Pacific Ocean, oceanic crust, and the Juan de Fuca Plate here subducting underneath the North American plate. You get that volcanic activity, right? Tends to kick up along the Cascades. That's where all the volcanoes are, thanks to the subduction zone. And the coast range here is kind of lifting up, getting that gradual lifting up here of the land, forming those mountains. And eventually, when this locked area kind of slips or fully ruptures, then we're going to see this land drop. I can't remember exactly how many feet. I think they said somewhere in the range of 40 feet or so along areas of the coastline of Oregon, along with whatever tsunami will flow in. That's going to be a devastating event for the Pacific Northwest when it happens. But yeah, this is kind of just a general cross view. This is where the stress builds up. Down dip here just a little bit further is where we see the tremor activity. But sometimes way down in here, we can get some locked areas and get these deeper, large earthquakes, which we really haven't seen in a little while. I'm really kind of surprised. We've seen a whole lot of tremor here recently. Let's check out the tremor here real quick while we're on that topic. And not volcanic tremor, but we're looking at tremor in the Cascadia Subduction Zone. This was from yesterday, 347 epicenters of tremor in this area. And most of it here at the northern end, kind of where we're seeing that earthquake activity, if you will, a little bit further up north. But this is like a long distance for us from Seattle up here. But regionally speaking, this is just a very small piece of this puzzle. And the subduction going on here within the zone could definitely be applying, it definitely is applying further pressure in this region. And we're seeing some of those effects there by the back building of earthquakes just shy of the Cascadia Subduction Zone itself. So we'll see what the tremor looks like a little bit later tonight when they update it. But man, definitely activity ramping up out here along the western coast. And nada here for a couple days now, more than a couple days out here along the western Pacific. So I expect things to continue for earthquake activity and earthquake potential out here along the eastern section of the Pacific Plate to continue until we see some further large-scale activity over here across the western Pacific. Another area that's been, well, before we go down south here, let's cover the rest of the states. And there's a movement up here in Nevada, northern Nevada, Oregon border, still seeing some activity this morning. And this has been kind of an ongoing thing here for the past couple days. Got about 21 earthquakes just outside the Sheldon area. This used to be called the Sheldon National Antelope Refuge. Now, I'm not for sure if they changed the name or not, but I remember coming out here a few years back checking out a previous earthquake swarm which had occurred within the Sheldon area. Man, it took lots and lots of dirt roads to get out here, but it was pretty cool, pretty peaceful. And that earthquake swarm, though, was a little bit more within this zone. So we noticed a little bit of migration here to the east from that previous earthquake swarm there a few years back. Pretty cool to see. A lot of desert out there. Beautiful opportunity for nighttime photography. No light pollution whatsoever. It's amazing what you'll see out there in the sky in the desert. Let's see here. Throughout the Intermountain West and portions of Utah, a little bit of activity. Nothing major ramping up there. It's been relatively quiet. Same for the Yellowstone region. Let's check out Yellowstone here real quick. And it looks pretty calm. A couple small earthquakes, very small earthquakes here across Wyoming, Yellowstone National Park here within the last couple hours this morning. But overnight time frame and yesterday, things were pretty minimal. No signatures of any large quakes or any type of magma movement. Things look pretty calm there for now. All right, further east throughout Texas, Oklahoma area, we got 2.8, looks like, in the yellow. Now that is a did you feel it response there when they kicked the pager up in the yellow due to the not only the shaking but also the responses here. They're only about a three or four responses. That's kind of surprising. But it looks like some folks there reported some strong shaking from this 2.8. Okay, 7.4 kilometers deep, so somewhat of a deeper earthquake, but actually kind of surprised anybody felt it. All right, what else we got here? Throughout Missouri, New Madrid zone as well down here showing some activity. That is from yesterday, though, all three of these earthquakes. Nothing really showing up today, which we can obviously check on the seismographs here. I have quite a bit that are accessible to the public. The University of Memphis Center for Earthquake Research and Information. There's seismograph stations all over the eastern portion of the country and more specifically around the New Madrid zone here, just because it is a very hazardous area in terms of future earthquakes. And nothing showing up here on the earthquake map here today. We would definitely see it. We would know about it. But nothing showing up here over the last hour or so within that seismograph station. All right, down south, got some activity around the Puerto Rico Trench kicking up once again, a 4.1 north of Puerto Rico. Very close here to the trench area, 74 kilometers deep for that 4.1 coming in, looks like just after midnight. Also some further activity, some twos around the mainland area down in the typical swarm area of Puerto Rico. Over here around the, what is that, Villa Cruz? Excuse me. Let me grab a drink here real quick. Got a 4.5, pretty deep earthquake, it looks like, into portions of the Middle American Trench at northern end, it looks like there. Hermanos, is that right? 119 kilometers for a 4.5. That one coming in earlier yesterday evening. South America region is an area we've been watching kind of bounce back and forth here between the divergent boundary. And there's actually a pretty cool site. Where's that one at? I was going to show you guys the differences here in the plates here. That's actually a really cool site. They got a lot of information here on the nps.gov website in terms of geology and plate tectonics. Really cool. It talks about how the West Coast used to be an entire subduction zone. That includes areas south of the bay and whatnot, but that has been changed, obviously, throughout time. Now the subduction zone sits up just north here. And we got the transform fault here, the San Andreas fault, where two plates are moving past each other, not subducting. And then we got the convergent boundary, which is the subduction zone. That's the Cascadia right here with the cold front looking system, the arrows pointing. Divergent boundary, we chat about that a lot, is the separation there of the sea floor. Pretty cool to look at. Definitely a big fan of geology. That's one of my classes I'm currently taking here at our college. And this area, divergent boundary, has been bouncing back and forth here. Separation of the sea, or divergent boundary. I'm sorry. All sorts of different faults kicking up out here, but divergent boundary is the separation of the seafloor. Been popping back and forth here between this area and our subduction zone area here to the east. Back and forth here the past couple days, almost directly across from one another, putting pressure. When we get the separation here, we get the further pressure built up along this area of the Peru-Chile Trench, and that's what we've been seeing. No major activity yet, but definitely a noticeable uptick in movement along the Peru-Chile Trench around the Santiago, Chile area. And today, looks like there's a couple other smaller quakes there in the mix on the Earthquake 3D globe. But definitely things still continuing in that region. Activity trying to make its way west here with some smaller earthquakes and the pressure gradients here, far as the general plate movement I do like to show that quite often as well. General plate movement here. It shows a lot of the westward pressure gradients here from the Pacific plate. That's these long arrows indicating general plate movement. And it does build up quite a bit within this area of the Filipino plate south into the Indonesia area and the Java Trench. Here's that just a real quick description of the separation of the seafloor, adding further stress east along the Peru-Chile Trench there in South America. I kind of like this map. It does a very good job of basic, simple plate movement and areas to watch. All right, let's get back to our earthquakes here. Alaska has seen some activities. Well, it looks like within the last hour, way up north. Not that far up north, but up around Denali and just outside of Anchorage, seen a couple small earthquakes. No major movement here across the Aleutian Trench today. And again, some activity here around the Indonesia area. And some smaller quakes, again, trying to make its way westward along that region. Over here further west across Mongolia, seen a couple small earthquakes this morning, a 4.8 and a 4.5 it looks like. About 10 kilometers deep. Some activity around Afghanistan area as well. Also down south in the mid-Indian Ridge here, had a 5.1 kicking off. Atlantic Ocean has remained relatively quiet here over the past couple days, so that's why I think we need to watch a couple different regions that have been showing seismic activity increase, and that's obviously in areas along the Pacific Northwest, North American plate boundary with the Pacific plate, also down here across the South America region where we have been seeing that bouncing back here between the two areas of earthquakes along the specific boundaries. Far as Mauna Loa goes, still got the continued eruption as we chatted about here at the beginning of this update. Activity kind of ramping up here around the summit regions with some earthquake activity, very shallow. Of course, with the ongoing continuous flow of magma and lava spewing out, that will continue for quite some time. I don't know when it's going to end. But Kilauea Volcano and Mauna Loa, very active on the Big Island. And far as the recent VOG or SO2 emissions here, let's double check that. Let's make sure we got the most recent map. SO2 been spewing out into the atmosphere here. There's that low pressure system sucking up all this SO2. And current wind patterns here looks like that's going to continue for a little while with that low pressure system spinning it up. Notice the wind gradients here and the jet stream continuing to flow it over there towards the States. And this Gulf of Mexico region here, just seeing that high pressure just kind of sit there and spin and concentrate areas of SO2 over the Gulf and areas of Mexico there. And the bigger view shows how far this is kind of spreading out, and it's going to increase. I can only imagine what this map's going to look like here in a couple weeks of this activity. And of course, there's obviously other volcanoes. I keep saying that around the Vanuatu area, Indonesia islands. You know, there's almost always volcanoes in action out there, which are the leading cause of the SO2 emissions. But man, it's definitely spreading like crazy. I'm kind of curious to see what this is going to do, what the result will be from this activity. All right, let's go over here to the HVO and check out. Well, we read the update, so we really don't need to see the update on that again. I did want to check out the latest maps here on Mauna Loa and see what we have here. December 5th. It looks like they haven't updated this one yet today so far. Normally I like to check out the flow fronts and the advancement towards the highway This was from yesterday, so we know we've advanced a little bit further. So we might be... The environment here still looks like there's a little flatland area before we possibly downslope further towards the highway. But we'll watch that here, and we'll provide the update a little bit later on tonight with hopefully a newer map. Far as activity around the Tapo volcano, that was kind of kicking up last night. Again, some earthquake activity. It looks like yesterday around the Tapo volcano 3.0. Latest activity here across the seismograph drums will give us a good indicator of what's going on. Looks like we had a little bit of uptick overnight. That's when it was starting to begin right here. And not a whole lot further. Looks like right after our update last night, things kind of mellowed out with only a couple small earthquakes there at that super volcano in New Zealand. Kind of been an ongoing thing here for a couple days since that major activity. Started to see this thing light up like crazy here a few days back. But now these seismograph readings are starting to look a little bit more mellow. Not entirely, but just a little bit more calming down, so to speak. All right, space weather activity. There is our latest information here from the solarham.net website, which shows a lot of information here. Of course, they get all their information from various websites, the SDO, and all this data imagery right here. They provide the links to all their information that they're showing. But I kind of like to use this page because it's well set up. It's well, easy to read, so to speak. There's a couple other different space websites I use as well, but I kind of like this one. All right, sunspot activity, 90% chance for a C flare, 40% chance for an M flare, and a 10% chance for an X flare. Looking at the sunspots, go to the latest map right here. Shows still a couple areas to watch. I think this one here is our main probability. These up here are getting a little bit disorganized and kind of decaying. But also over here, this sunspot still has a couple close magnetic structures that may pose a threat for a flare. But I think our main area right now could be this sunspot. A couple new sunspot developments around the bend. And again, we'll watch it. There is our G1 class storm expected, and that is due to the coronal hole 53 that had been facing us. It is now obviously not directly facing us anymore, but the charged particles and the high solar wind stream is en route, so to speak, to Earth. And we'll wait for that to come up on the December 8th time period. Looks like right now time period is around the 0 to 600 time frame. And that's, that could be late afternoon, early evening time period. So that could be definitely a good time for that to come in, so we can possibly see it here on this end, this side of the Earth, I should say. Not down here in California, but for the folks up north. Current aurora looks like it's a majority around the higher latitudes on the unlit side of the sun, of the Earth. Let's hope the sun never goes dark. That would not be good. So, yeah, just a little chance it looks like for that side. Not really expecting anything major coming up here over the next couple nights until the 8th time period there, the UTC date of the 8th. Current solar flare activity. As you can see, things are kind of just neutral as they have been over the past 3 days or so. Last flare that we had on the 7-day chart was that very small M flare around the 3rd time period. But we're still kind of watching it. Things just kind of as is for now. Let's see what else we got. Anything major going on across the weather world? Well, check this out. I'd like to put this into motion on occasion here. Check out the West Coast. We got more storm systems after storm systems coming in. This one here on Thursday, late Thursday. Actually, this looks like it may be on late Friday night. That's a UTC time, early Saturday morning, possibly, with this other system that's coming in that's going to bring further rain. Here, we're definitely going to get some rain and much needed snow from these systems coming in. And I'm liking it. The longer range forecasts there kind of dry out a little bit. But either way, we're looking at some good rainfall and much needed snow coming into the west coast. And looks like a pretty massive system there into portions of, where do we got there? Illinois and northward, come around the 13th time period, or the 12th. Looks like that could be a pretty good snowmaker and possibly severe weather event with this type of setup. But we'll check on that a little bit later as time gets closer, because these weather models, they change a lot. But either way, I like the continued wet pattern here across the west coast. We need it badly. All right, again, webcam there around Mauna Loa is covered in fog and sulfuric, well, I shouldn't say, SO2 emissions, and a whole bunch of volcanic gas clouds obscuring the view completely around that area. I don't know when it's going to clear up, but right now it's just a cloudy day, a foggy day in the around the Mauna Loa volcano. Alrighty, folks, have a good day. Stay safe out there. Also, notice a deeper movement here on the globe around the Kermadec Trench. Some pretty deep earthquakes, and also the Fiji Islands area. Seeing some renewed movement. We should start to see activity kick up here around the Western Pacific, Mariana Plate, or the Mariana Trench. Goodness. I really haven't had too much caffeine today, so I might want to, I'm going to spike my coffee here and see if I can add a couple high concentrated drops of caffeine in there. And we should see things kick back up here along the Western Pacific, and possibly see things calm down. But if it doesn't happen, as far as things calming down here, we're probably going to be looking at an uptick in earthquake activity here across the region until this area to the west moves. Just that typical teeter-totter effect there that we tend to watch very often in these type of events. All right, folks, have a good day. Stay safe out there, and we will chat you guys a little bit later on tonight. Have a good one. Peace out.